After Union Man Joe Biden's historic kneecapping of the labor movement all in one fell swoop earlier this week when he stepped in and said that Congress needs to prevent the rail strike from happening, then followed by that, none other than Nancy Pelosi has come through to put up votes for this in the House of Representatives. The deal that was pushed through initially that many of the labor unions and members have voted down included just 1 day of paid sick leave. The workers were asking for much more than that. So instead of, making this new deal that's getting pushed through Congress be something much better, what Democrats and Nancy Pelosi have done is this. They are putting up a vote on that 1 day of paid sick leave bill, as well as a 7-day paid sick leave bill. They're doing this, in my opinion, to provide cover in the future when they're like, oh, you guys fucked over the unions with this 1-day bill, and then they can say, oh no, we tried to vote on the 7-day bill, but the Republicans wouldn't vote for it. Here's why I think that this isn't necessarily a good excuse. Essentially, by passing the 1-day bill and the 7-day bill through the House, where Democrats have more of a majority and more control, so they're passing both of them, and they're saying, oh, hopefully we can get the Senate to vote on the 7-day one. When the Senate gets this, all of the members of the Senate, most of which do not want a rail strike from happening because it will put a strain on their corporate donors, essentially, if I'm looking at it in that way, but it's going to put a strain on the donors. It's going to have impacts across the country. A lot of them want to prevent this from happening. But if they see that there's a 7-day option and a 1-day option, most of these folks don't actually give a real shit about these workers, so they're probably going to vote for the 1-day option. Now, if you only deliver the 7-day option to the Senate, these folks still want to prevent the strike from happening, so you're very likely going to get more support for the 7-day option. Of course, this is not what happened. What happened was they put up the vote for both. In the House, this passed, both of them passed in the House. Something notable here was that with both of these votes happening in the House, progressives in the House you would think would be voting against the 1-day bill and in favor of the 7-day bill, right? They are progressives after all. You would think adding 1 day of sick leave, which is far, far less than the members of these labor unions who these progressives claim to support were asking for. So you would think that they would vote no in this case. Of course that is not the case. You could have had 90 or so members of the Progressive Caucus, which there are 90 or so of them in there. Most of them are not progressives in reality, but they're in this caucus. I'm not sure what the Progressive Caucus is for if they're not going to vote in a block against things like this, but imagine if 90 Democrats voted no for this. Now, it likely still would have passed, but at the least it would have sent a huge message that this is messed up. And they should have tried to do something. Again, at least send the message. Instead, they're all cowards, and all of them voted for the 1-day bill, with the exception of Rashida Tlaib. Props to her for voting against it, but it's kind of moot at this point. But just something notable that happened there that is, frankly, ridiculous. That 1-day vote passed the House with a margin of 290 to 137. The 7-day vote narrowly passed the House with a 221 to 207 count on that vote. Again, Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, is the one who decides what gets voted on the floor. She made the conscious decision to vote on the 1-day bill and the 7-day bill. This was a choice to allow the 1-day bill to pass and to pass both of these bills along to the Senate. That choice was made, and basically the message that this sends to union voters who came out and supported Democrats in big numbers this year, it's essentially a thanks for your votes, we really appreciate them, but fuck you. We're not going to actually, when we have a chance to do something meaningful to support this pro-labor message that we're doing, when we have a chance to do something about it, we're just not going to do it. But thanks for the votes. We appreciate them. Now let's get into how everyone voted here on the Senate side. We know that both bills passed the House, but now yesterday this went up for votes in the Senate. This would need a 60-vote majority in the Senate to vote for this. This is not one where it's 51 votes and it goes through. You need to get through the 60-vote threshold, making this necessary to have Republicans on board for either of these bills to vote for. But now, again, remember, the Senate had the chance to vote for the 1-day or the 7-day bill. They were doing both of them there. When we look at the 7-day bill, the Senate voted 52-43 on adding 7 days of paid sick leave to the rail deal, falling short of the 60 needed. Voting yes on this, we had 46 Democrats and 6 Republicans. Those 6 Republicans were Braun, Cruz, Graham, Hawley, Kennedy, and Rubio. Voting no, the rest of the Republicans, and none other than Joe Manchin. I don't think that we're going to be surprised to hear that. Reportedly, Ted Cruz actually fist bumped Bernie Sanders after this vote. To be clear, also, on top of this, Ted Cruz and several of those same Republicans actually voted no on the 1-day bill as well. Which is pathetic when you think about this. Ted Cruz voted no on the 1-day deal and yes on the 7-day deal. Both of those things very good for workers, but the squad, with the exception of Rashida Tlaib, did not. The Progressive Caucus did not. Ted Cruz is essentially voting further to the left than the entirety of the Progressive Caucus on this bill. Let me say that again. Ted Cruz was to the left of the Progressive Caucus on this bill. He is actually going through and voting in support of workers. Now, I don't know what his incentives are, and I have a lot of other problems with Ted Cruz, as you probably saw if you watched my video from the other day on Ted Cruz and where he was on the Respect for Marriage Act. But, I mean, clearly he and Josh Hawley, who's on here, they both made statements recently saying, hey, Republicans are, they're essentially trying to make the case that the Republican Party is going to be the party of the working class. And if Biden and the Democrats keep doing shit like this, I mean, they very well might. And we're actually starting to see that start to, some hints of this. Members of the rail unions and rail workers are not happy about this, as they should be not happy about this. We can go ahead and pull up the next tweet here, Colin. I'm gonna read these. This is a tweet from a railroad worker in Ohio this morning. Let's put it this way. For 3 years, I flew a flag in front of my house that said impeach Trump. If Trump runs against Biden in 2024, I'll take some of my back pay and I'll give it to Trump. I feel betrayed by Biden. I mean, this is just the beginning of this sort of thing. These workers, again, this entire campaign season was focused on abortion and a lot of it on the labor movement. You can't just campaign on this thing really hard for an entire campaign season and then barely weeks afterwards just absolutely forget about the people who voted for you and why they did. Like, yes, they're counting on people to have short memories, maybe, I don't know, but this is a pretty big deal. This is a very big deal. And why, this is just, it's a joke. And just before I'm recording this, I've got one more tweet here that we can pull up, Colin. This is reported by Reuters. Biden says, my goal is to get paid sick leave, not just for rail workers, but every worker in America. Why the hell should anyone believe this? So basically he's saying like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it in this deal, even though I have the authority essentially to do so, and Congress has the authority to do so. I'm going to try to lump this in, and I want to make some more broad legislation that's going to get paid sick leave for everyone. Yeah, just like you protected abortion for everyone, right? You said you were going to codify Roe versus Wade. You didn't do it all summer. You said you'd do it after the election and that people should give you money. And people donated money and voted for Democrats on this. And then 3 days after the election, you said, sorry, we can't do anything about it. We don't have the votes. When Bernie Sanders endorsed you to become president, you said that you promised to give to push for a $15 minimum wage. Once you got into office, we've heard absolutely nothing about a $15 minimum wage since Joe Biden has become president. Why should folks believe that Joe Biden is going to get paid sick leave for all workers in America? Why should we believe that? Or do you think people are going to listen to this, fall more into the category of this rail worker and say, you know what, Biden betrayed me. Biden betrayed me. Because this seems like a huge betrayal, in my opinion. We'll definitely stay on this story. This is egregious. To consider yourself the most pro-labor president in American history, and then in like the same breath stab these workers in the back in the way that he's doing is ridiculous. stay tuned to Status Coup for this. We're gonna, if anything breaks on this over the weekend, we'll be there. If any sort of, strike happens that is like a wildcat strike, we'll definitely be covering that. If anything like that happens, I'll likely be on the ground there. Definitely consider supporting us to make sure that that happens. You can do that by becoming a member, statuscoup.com/join. You can also follow me on Twitter for more updates at LewisD217. Be sure you're subscribed to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a great weekend.